Hello there, I'm Greg Braun and welcome to the second episode of the Power of Quality vlog series. Today I'm joined by Hamton Property Group's Managing Director, Matt Malseed, to discuss the power of quality in new apartment developments. Hello Matt, how you doing?
Greg, I'm good. Good to be with you. Good to be out of the house.
Absolutely. Where are you zooming in from?
I'm joining you from the Moonee Valley Park display gallery out in Moonee Ponds, so you can see some collateral in the background. It's just good to get out of the house and out of my work from home hoodie.
Yes, and have a shave, unlike me, who's still cultivating the beard.
Well, I shaved on Sunday, so it just shows that, I couldn't grow a beard like that even if I tried.
It's looking all very green behind you, Moonee Valley Ponds property.
Well, Moonee Valley Park, 18 hectares of green open space on a 40 hectare site. So there's plenty of green open space out here that we've got some great plans on developing over the next 10 to 12 years.
Amazing. So Matt, you hold a double degree in civil and structural engineering and finance. I think this makes you exceptionally well qualified to talk to us about quality. But what else can you tell us about yourself more broadly?
Well, I guess if we cast my mind back, I've probably been interested in property and construction since I was sketching house plans and building Lego as a youngster. So it's been a lifelong passion. Then I guess, ended up going through uni and doing the double degree and sort of falling into property after that in a family development capacity, which was a surprise for someone who grew up on a farm. But then, as for Hamton, for those of you who are watching who don't know us, we're a Melbourne-based private property developer. So we focus on medium and high density projects, Melbourne only, predominantly residential with varying amounts of mixed uses. So we've been around since 2005. Since then, we've amassed around $3.5 billion worth of completed and current projects, predominantly in partnership with industry super funds and institutional capital partners. We've been fortunate enough to win a lot of awards along the way. And I've personally been involved with Hamton since its establishment and have been co-owner and managing director since late 2015.
Awesome.
Yeah. We, just to probably round out the background about us, we focus on the inner and middle ring suburbs of Melbourne. We consider ourselves an innovative and certainly a design-conscious developer with a conscience. We aim to improve everywhere we develop, and we're more than happy to put our name to our projects. So, as we say in the office, we sort of try and do the right thing and think long term. It works so far.
That's really interesting because our discussion today about quality, there's almost a quality to a build and there's a quality to the environment that you're building in. So it's almost like trying to amp up the quality of both of those things, the environment, the space that you're building around versus the actual building itself, which I think maybe we can go into a little bit in a bit.
Cool. Sounds good.
Cool. So, all of that sounds great. The first episode of this series was actually with my colleague Stacey Lewis, and she joined us to discuss really new homes and apartment research. She's got this wealth of data that she's shared with us and the insights that kind of underpin that data. And really, the focus was about the idea of quality, what it means. The sort of juxtaposition across the fact that it's kind of a hot topic for a lot of people, and yet it's really important for a lot of people. And it's the reason why they buy new, but they're also concerned about it for reasons that we can get into around the kind of the press, and building issues that we've seen in the press recently. But I guess just kicking off, I looked at your website actually, and I think that the 12th word of some of the copy on your website was actually quality, which was great to see. But what does quality mean to you at Hamton?
It's a good question, and it's a word that can have many different meanings in scale, breadth to different people. It's very subjective. Quality, sort of for us, or our our quality insurance, approaches first and foremost is about people, working with, engaging with companies and experts who are experienced in their field, who are high quality people. In our office, we've got a saying where we don't want to accept mediocrity in anything that we do, and we always try and ask when we're working through new designs or something like that, what is this as good as it can be? And that's the question that we want to be asking ourselves and our consultants, and quite often by spending more time on things and having fresh eyes look at them and collaborate through collaboration, you can get a better outcome, often provided you stick with the genesis of the idea, but you definitely can improve quality in a design sense.
Yeah. So when you're talking about that, you're thinking about the building itself, the property itself that's under construction.
Well, even how can we make the layout of an apartment better or more efficient, or get more storage in, or make the common areas of the building more efficient or more functional? Thinking through how people are going to use spaces and interact with them.
Yeah.
Certainly from that point of view, and making sure we do take the time to get the important things right. And the important things aren't always the things that generate the most revenue. So it's critically important in buildings and in development, I think, and we think, to get the public realm and where visitors interact with the building to be as good as it can be. And quite often in some small projects, that's only a cafe on the ground floor.
Sure.
In a project like Moonee Valley Park, it's all about the quality of the public realm and the experience of the visitor. Because ultimately they're the ones who talk to their mates about whether they reckon a place is good or not. And that word of mouth that you want to try and instill in the community about whatever project you're working on.
Yeah, you mentioned kind of the design of the building, of the apartments, and how people move around and things like that. Presumably, even more important now, we've all spent 3 months locked away inside our apartments, and we're actually thinking about that space and utilisation probably quite differently than we were 6 to 9 months ago. Yeah,
I think the study nook may well go from being stuck in the back corner to being somewhere where there's a little bit more natural light. I would expect people have probably been finding themselves in apartments working in the living room or working in areas of apartments that are adjacent to a window where they can see a view and make it a better environment. So it's constantly evolving, and that's one of the things that makes it so interesting to be doing.
For sure. How do you manage quality assurance in new development projects generally? Things like quality assurance charters spring to mind. Is that something you consider? Where does that fit in the importance and scale?
I mean, we're a private developer. We don't have a quality insurance charter, but we've got a bucket load of procedures which are the same sort of thing, I guess. Internally, where we peer review our designs across different developments or different stages, so we get fresh eyes looking at things. Always. So there's always a quality control on the design front. As I said before, we take as much time as we think within the pressures and realities of the program to get the important things right. But another quality insurance, the big piece of what we do is work with builders and construction. So over the last 15 years, we've developed up a set of documents and standards or principles, project requirements that our contractors sign up to, which effectively control the procedures that need to happen throughout the build, and in particular towards the end of the build and in that critical handover phase to purchasers. And to that end, selecting the right builder for your project is absolutely one of the most critical decisions you can make in a project, and understanding their approach to quality and their approach to customer service are fundamental, and their experience too.
How much of there's been a fair amount of negative press around apartment quality. cladding, structural, that kind of stuff. They make headlines, and people read headlines, and you know, whether it's true or false or somewhere in between, people do kind of gravitate to this information. How much of that has affected kind of the conversations you're having with your consumers right now, and your approach to marketing and sales with them?
Certainly, buyers are asking more questions. They're asking direct questions and some what might be considered hard questions, but you know, we don't really mind that. We ensure that our sales consultants are up to speed with all the relevant industry knowledge, and are able to you know, paint an accurate picture about what's really going on. There is some stuff in the press that I would say is overly emotive, but then equally there are genuine issues that are prevalent in the industry, so which I wouldn't want to be dismissive of. So,
yeah. Is this an increasing issue? You're getting asked more questions more of the time by the, I guess, more educated consumer.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, you know, if my advice to purchasers would be to ask a couple of questions when they come into a display suite, which is who is the developer, what have they done previously, and who is the builder, and what have they done previously. You know, you compare buying an apartment off the plan with buying a car. No one would ever buy a car from a company that they'd never heard of. Yet in many cases in development, there are developers who you don't know who they are, and people are buying something that's worth, I don't know, 10 times the value of a car from someone that they don't know who it's from. So that'd be my advice to buyers, for sure. And go and have a look at the previous projects too.
It's I made that exact point this morning. You know, it's particularly with quality. You have in automotive manufacturing cars, you have often, you know, NCAP rating. So it's the dad test. So if your dad asks you, is that a safe car, son? I say, well, it's got an NCAP rating of 5, and therefore he would know what that means. And people know what that kind of stuff means. And I wonder if that doesn't quite translate into property, and that may be an opportunity to, but you know, where the property is so much more expensive than the car, you're buying it, if in this case maybe off the plan, you've not seen it, touched it, felt it, you don't really have a sense of what kind of good should be or looks like, or who these people even are that are doing it, and yet we still go and do it anyway. We still go and go ahead with that purchase. I do find it fascinating, kind of the difference between the mindsets there.
Funny you say that, because this morning in preparation for this chat, one thing I did was I Googled sort of quality in vehicles, in new cars, and then I Googled quality in apartments and in new apartments. And in the new cars, what came up was like there's all these ratings, exactly as you say, and particularly in the US, they're really big on this.
Yeah.
And then what popped up in terms of apartments and developments was some of those articles that you were referring to previously, or advice equally out there about, you know, how to go about buying off the plan and what questions to ask. So that's content that's out there, and educated people, I think it's better.
Yeah, it's definitely out there, but there's no, if we go with the dad test analogy, there's nothing that goes, it's got a 5-star X, therefore everyone's, you know, a consumer is content that it's decent. I wonder if there's an opportunity for that, but that was sort of a private side thought. Display suites, if we're kind of on the subject of kind of getting to grips with what you're about to buy, display suites are a good way in, a good kind of sense of the thing that you're about to purchase, or give you a sense of what it's going to be like. How do you ensure quality into those, or how much effort do you put into making sure those are representative of the brand and the product?
Well, the amount of effort that goes in is huge,
right.
Because it's the first impression, and you only get one opportunity to make a first impression. I should qualify that as the first real life impression, because you've probably made an impression digitally, but it is the first time that people engage, you know, physically in person or physically with a product that may be on display. So we make sure we try and think about not just what's in the display in terms of maybe a kitchen and a bedroom and a bathroom and a robe, but what's the holistic customer experience from when they actually inquire, but in particular when they arrive at the display, and how do we give them a faithful sense of the product that's going to be delivered, which is only ever a sample or a snapshot of the entire project, but without overwhelming them with information and confusing them. And there's a tension between those things, but it's a big deal and they're very important. The one that I'm sitting in today cost about $2.5 million, and
wow,
it was a huge investment of time and money, and it's really important to because people are spending a lot of money, and they can't go and see the car in the showroom. So it's really important to do a good job of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and thanks for sharing that cost. That's quite the investment in for good reason, but yeah, quite the investment nonetheless in something that people perhaps potentially take for granted.
Well, can I just add that it is a $2 billion development
as a proportion, maybe not so. Yeah, should have been more then.
Yeah. It will be, mate. We're going to need to refit it a few times as we work through the stages.
Absolutely. Do you see the if you think about the industry more broadly, do you see display suites outside of your own organisation? Are they up to scratch? Do you see everyone else doing a good job in this space, or is there room for a little bit of improvement there?
I think there's some interesting developments happening in that space. Like over my sort of 15 plus years, just how much better technology is now. Whilst it's still great to physically interact with the display, how technology can supplement and add to that experience is really important, and has improved a lot. Small projects often don't have the commercial reality where they can justify the expense of a physical display, and that's where again technology and renders and having enough collateral to be able to convey what the product is really important. So different people have a different approach about the sales track, so to speak, and what the optimum way is to kind of educate buyers on the way through. But there's a lot of different schools of thought in every aspect of development.
Yeah, and talking about the projects that you are sitting in and carrying on that subject. It's a huge development, and it's no small undertaking to get this off the ground and to get it running. If you think about maybe a restaurant where you've got 20 covers, it's very versus one that's got 150. It's very easy to maintain a sense of quality in a smaller, compact restaurant. You can see everything. One person can potentially control that. As you scale, it's hard to maintain that sense of quality. I feel like that your project is the 140 seat covered restaurant where you've got so much going on, and I wonder who are you relying on to maintain that quality finish, that quality of product, that quality of experience at every turn, because it's so big and so vast.
Well, the short answer is a lot of different people who are, in many cases, a lot smarter than I am. But to use the analogy of the large restaurant, I mean, it's not entirely accurate insofar as the project's a stage development that's going to be delivered, over a period of time. But where that ties into the importance of having high quality and setting the right benchmark from the outset is that the initial stages here for example at Moonee Valley Park, and ensuring that they are of the utmost quality that we're representing and that we expect is absolutely going to underpin the future success of the subsequent stages, because what every developer hopes for is in stage projects or actually throughout non-stage, just subsequent projects, is to get repeat customers and repeat buyers. So managing managing that process effectively and putting the right stake in the ground at the start of a stage project is absolutely key.
Yep.
And you know, there's more than just commercial drivers to it. You know, in the case of this project, we're in a joint venture with Post Plus Superannuation Fund and Moonee Valley Racing Club, and us and our partners are really committed to leaving a legacy on this site, because there's not too many development sites of this scale in Melbourne that have the opportunity to deliver such an amount of green space and amenity for the future with how fast we're growing and seeing increasing density.
You alluded to earlier something about the, you know, kind of, I think it was about, you know, keeping in touch with the customer as they go through the journey and maintaining that kind of line of sight. My experience of buying the flat that I'm sitting in right now is that there's all this fanfare at the start. You go to the display suite, you sign on dotted line. It kind of goes quiet for the next 2 years, and then you can move in, and it's probably 6 months late. And you hope for the best that you're going to get what you can't remember that you bought because it was 2 years ago. I feel like, you know, that those intervening 2 years is like prime time for developers, for builders potentially to communicate, to have a captive audience, because we're so excited about the thing we're about to buy or have bought but yet to move in. And it's like previews at a cinema, you know, it's like you just want to be entertained. And yet my experience wasn't perhaps the greatest, but I was ready to tell everyone who would listen about my great, you know, the fun fact that you're about to send me about the construction or the things you found digging up the car park, you know, whatever it might be. What's your kind of attitude or approach to, you know, that communication in between the buy and the move-in date?
Well, I mean, our attitude is to over-communicate rather than under-communicate.
Right.
The last thing we want is our buyers or customers wonder what's going on and getting in touch because they're not hearing anything and they're wondering. So we're very proactive in setting up time-lapse cameras on site, so we're able to have footage of developments. This is pretty common throughout the industry, and you know, seeing regular construction updates or other updates. For example, here in terms of different pieces of amenity being delivered along the way, inviting purchasers along to events and activations that are going to be occurring on site. So really making sure that journey from when they do, we're not leaving them when they sign and saying, come and give us your money at the end. It's a big process for all of these people, and it's really important that they feel looked after right the way along. And again, you go back to the stage project example, like they're going to be living here as residents, and that word of mouth for future purchases, and they're going to be able to come over on the weekend into the display suite and knock on the door and say hi to Tracy or Campbell. It's really important to get that stuff right.
It's so warming to hear, because, you know, my experience was one of many. I know others that have had better experiences, but mine wasn't as, perhaps, you know, all of those things you've mentioned are kind of things that I might expect at the very least. And that word of mouth piece that you mentioned as well, it is so important in, you know, people making purchase decisions about anything. We kind of know that, and that's very common knowledge, but there just seems to be in some instances that disconnect between the opportunity to provide that word of mouth and make people really talk about something positively versus what the actual experience is. But as I say, warming to hear your approach to that. I wanted just to kind of close out with a couple more quick questions. So we've got one stat that I was talking about this morning. It's a large proportion, so it's about 77% of new apartment buyers highlighted quality assurance as a key benefit to buying new over established. How do you think, broad question, but how do you think developers can really capitalise on this?
I mean, in its simplest form, just do what you say you're going to do and don't do what you say you're not going to do. That's probably not really helpful practical advice, but it's you know, a number one fundamental, really.
Sure.
In terms of the communication piece that we we're talking to before, like people understand that things happen, and you're better off communicating, because sometimes the timeframes in development do change for various reasons. We've just had a 1 in 100-year pandemic. People are going to understand that when you get in touch with them and let them know that, hey, things might have slowed down just a little bit for a couple of months. So rather than not getting in touch. So, what other practical things can people do to give quality assurance? One of the things is, consider whether you can offer a longer defects liability period. I've seen contracts of sale from Queensland where that's only 3 months. Generally in Victoria, you see them between 6 and 12 months. Maybe there's value in extending that for longer, particularly in the aftermath of some of the issues with apartment defects and structural issues and cladding issues, to just give buyers a greater peace of mind. Maybe there's value in that. I'm not sure. We haven't implemented something like that, but we have talked about it. So, and I guess the other thing, just make sure the purchasers are aware of benefits that they may have that aren't fundamental to the sale and the closing process, if you like. So make sure they understand what warranties they're going to have the benefit from in receiving their new apartment. Mm-hmm. That's not usually something that comes up. It's not one of the first 50 questions that a purchaser would typically ask. So that there are things like that we certainly encourage our sales consultants to be speaking about and certainly understand, so that if they are asked, they can convey that information. And in communicating in the lead up to settlement, letting people know about some of these things as well, so that their expectations are managed throughout what is it's an unusual process to go through for a lot of people.
Thank you again for joining me today, Matt. It's been great to gain further insight and some more practical insight into how this is done, that kind of underpins some of the insight that we've heard from consumers, but great to hear it firsthand about the power of quality and quality insurance. Thank you again, and take care.
No problems, Greg. Thanks very much.
Cheers.